go because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
Simon should have did his due diligence and found out the procedure, whether a promoter has the obligation to stop a contest going ahead because of a PED situation. So he lost the first round. Even though he came out hard, he lost the round. It's on the British Boxing Board of Control. Once the information was in the British Boxing Board of Control's hands, the fight, whether it goes ahead, is in their hands. It's not in Eddie Hearn's hands. Not contractually. Now, Eddie and Cali were trying to preserve the fight. And here's the thing, right? What's the difference between Eddie and Cali? Because no one is asking, Cali, why were you going to let a fighter, your fighter, go in with a fighter allegedly juiced up? Aren't you endangering your fighter? What are your morals as a promoter in terms of your duty of keeping the fighter you promote safe? No one has asked that question. Nobody. The reason the energy is pointed at Eddie Hearn is the reason why Eddie was on the show today. Because like Eddie said, he's going to give them millions and millions of views. And people are saying this is the most entertaining shit they've heard for a long while. And it's not like they're going in a ring. This is just a debate between a disc jockey, if you want, and a boxing promoter.
Whoa. James the Trucker in Essex. James, how are you? You want to be me, mate? Yeah, absolutely. Jim, I feel for you, but you've done all right refereeing Simon and Eddie in there. This has been some of the best radio I have heard in many years.
See, the thing is, right, bringing Cali on the show doesn't put numbers up there. The Wassermans had investigators that they paid for determining if Conor Benn ingested anything illegal to get an advantage over Chris Eubank. And they came up with no. And they was willing to go ahead. Sowlands, Wasserman, and Eubank, and Eddie, and the board. The thing they didn't discuss in this debate, which is all important, is the mole. This is the statement they put out before the mole came out and went to the Daily Express. This is what they put out. On the evening of the 4th of October 2022, the board of the British Boxing Board of Control Limited resolved that the contest between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, scheduled to take place on the 8th of October 2022, is prohibited, as it is not in the interests of boxing. That was communicated to the boxers and promoters involved on the morning of the 5th of October 2022. Nowhere in that does it say anything that this contest will not go ahead because Conor Benn tested for PEDs. Nowhere. Why didn't they mention Conor's test? Simon is saying they do acknowledge VADA. No, they don't, Simon. You're telling Eddie they acknowledge it, and they don't acknowledge it. That's why they haven't mentioned the test in the statement. If UCAD had popped him, they would have mentioned that. They would have mentioned why the contest is not going ahead, because they recognise UCAD. Let me punctuate the point further to Simon and to those who don't understand. Here's Robert Smith saying you can't ignore positive tests. Once this case is finished, then maybe we have to look at our regulations in regard to that. What they mean by that is how they're going to process data in a similar situation. Are we going to take action on their findings or ignore it like we have done previously with Billy Joe Saunders, which Eddie brought up, which Simon tried to dispute, and he was incorrect again?
And then what they did was they sanctioned him there on afterwards not because of the refusal to provide him with tests, but because he refused to cooperate with them in their investigation to find out what the hell was going on.
No, they didn't sanction him. The board have made it clear with precedents that they do not acknowledge VADA testing. This is the whole issue around their rules. They only acknowledge...
They acknowledge adverse VADA. Yes,
no,
they do,
no,
Eddie.
They don't.
Yes,
Simon, you're not aware of... we had the whole situation with Billy Joe Saunders.
As the Cockneys will say, the London Cockneys. Si, me old son. Not Simon. Si. Look. The British Boxing Board of Control did not sanction Conor Benn. And for anyone saying you're Eddie Hearn, you're Conor Benn, go find that receipt online where they sanctioned him. They didn't sanction him. Conor gave up his license. Now, that's suspect. Giving up your license is suspect, right? That's almost trying to sabotage the investigation. Well, I haven't got a license. Why do you want to investigate me? And I'm saying he shouldn't have done that. But he gave up his license. He wasn't sanctioned. It's a lie. And by the way, what's happened to the UCAD investigation? What, your investigation relies on his dossier? The alleged guilty party. You're going to use his dossier. Who are you going to use to do the investigation? The people who didn't catch him with anything in his system. So what are UCAD going to do? Are you going to prove him guilty when you proved him innocent already? You tested Conor Benn and you came up with a clean athlete. You're going to use someone outside UCAD now? So what are you saying? UCAD are incompetent? It's bullshit. And I said this all along. The board are full of gas, right? They're going to take the dossier, have a cup of tea, and then they're going to, okay, we're going to do this and that. But they're not going to investigate anything. The WB, look, let me keep it a buck. The WBC didn't do no investigation. You think they sat through that dossier? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. It's all bullshit. What Simon is saying is all bullshit. What the board is saying is all bullshit. And for all I know, what Conor Benn is saying is all bullshit. But whatever Eddie's saying here is not bullshit. He's speaking about what the board's guidelines are, and he's correct. Conor was not sanctioned, and the board do not acknowledge adverse findings from VADA, like Simon Jordan is saying. That's bullcrap. Simon's biggest gripe was Eddie saying that he was a failed businessman or chairman at Crystal Palace and took them into administration or put them into bankruptcy. And then...
no basis for that.
You are the king of hypocrisy, but you talk like you're some kind of business expert. We know how that went for you.
No. In order to lose a lot of money, you have to make it in the first place. And if you're telling me to make 100 million
it's a marathon, not a sprint,
make 100 million quid, to make 100 million quid out of one business in 5 years. No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No,
You went bankrupt.
No, I didn't.
Crystal Palace Football Club?
Don't be stupid.
Crystal Palace Football Club?
Don't be stupid, Eddie. I didn't go bankrupt at all.
Crystal Palace Football Club?
And don't say silly things that can get you into trouble, because I didn't go bankrupt in the slightest.
In that case, I apologise.
What I did was, like everybody else that has challenges in life. No. What I did was, as the biggest creditor, because of the biggest banking crisis in the world, I took a view that I could no longer fund it anymore, put it into administration and wrote off 50 million quid on the basis of the fact that I made 100 million quid. So get your facts right.
I apologise. You took the club into administration.
No, I didn't take it into administration. A secured creditor put it in there, and I had to take my medicine, which I've never complained about.
No? Simon didn't like what Eddie said about bankruptcy and administration. And what Simon said may have been plausible. I don't know. I haven't followed the story. But I've done a little digging. How Jordan lost 75 million. He sold his mobile phone company for 75 million and bought Crystal Palace. And obviously, whatever he put in there, he didn't retain or recoup. So that's a loss. That's a failure as a businessman, if that is correct. And on Wikipedia, it says he purchased the football club until administration in early 2010. And that's what Eddie said, administration. And Simon said, no, it's not administration. But that's what Wikipedia says. And look, then again, Wikipedia isn't always 100% correct. And you see how pissed Simon is? But that's the perception. And that's what a lot of the media is putting out there. Administration, you flopped. $70 million from your mobile phone company, you lost it. But Simon believes there's a more plausible explanation. And look what he's saying here. In 2020, I'm a very rich man without the money. That's philosophy. That's not actually a tangible discussion about what actually happened to the business, to the money. That's putting a philosophical spin on it so you can feel better about yourself. And everyone does that in life. You have to. We all have to do that. We all have to make light of certain situations we go through. That's life. But he doesn't like it. Why? Because he believes there's a more plausible explanation of what happens. Well, Eddie believes that with his situation with Conor. So when Simon is saying certain things that Eddie believes is false, of course it's annoying. That's why Eddie said at the start, I want to give him a slap. Let me give you the gist of it, right? Simon spent a lot of time saying, well, the British Boxing Board were put in a difficult position, saying that Eddie and Matchroom or Conor were threatening to put cease and desist letters on them and this and that, and which Simon had no proof of, and which Robert Smith didn't say they did when he was on TalkSport.
I mean, Eddie, at the time you said you wanted to, quote, slap Simon.
Yeah, I didn't like what he said because it's not the Simon Jordan world. I mean, we did hundreds of media outlets around that. The time of the press conference, we still had so much information to come from the investigation that we were advised that we couldn't say anything until that developed further. We then got to a point where things had evolved and we chose to speak to the media. I didn't want to come on the show. I didn't like what he said. And the key here is I don't think he understands the sport, the disciplinary matters, the procedure.
That's a big assumption on your part, mate.
Okay.
Simon, you're winging it. You're winging it. You're not doing no research. You're winging it.
I'll ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Through the whole process of this, what would you have done? Forget the press conference.
Yeah, I heard that bit.
What would you have done in my position?
A lot differently to what you did,
Let's go. Let's go. What
I would have done is I would have taken the best course of action with best practice in mind. I would have looked at the fact, right, that I've got two contracts. I've got a contract with a fighter and I've got a contract with the opponent. And I'd have looked at what my obligations are under both. And I'd have looked at the situation, because you're quite clever, Eddie, you're quite smooth and you're quite manipulative. And what you do is you let the world see the things through your eyes. What you do is you say, I couldn't pull this fight. You could have pulled that fight.
I couldn't have pulled
Yes, you could.
No, absolutely
Eddie,
not.
are you telling me... Oh, let me finish.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you haven't got a contract with a fighter, Conor Benn, that if he brings himself into disrepute for a failed drugs test, that you wouldn't be able to drop him as a promoter?
No, and the contract... if you let me...
Let me just qualify a bit further. Right? So if you haven't got that contract, which basically means that most people with a sensible outlook would have a contract with somebody that if they bring themselves in the sport into disrepute and can't be fit for purpose, they would be then be able to jettison that contract. Given the fact that you are a walking embodiment of all things VADA, right? Everything's VADA for you. You pulled Pascal fight with Buatsi because of VADA.
No, I didn't.
Demetrius Andre.
Again.
Well, let me go through the list of
okay.
Let me go through the VADA ones.
Demetrius Andre is the best.
Do you see how much shit he's getting wrong? He doesn't do receipts. He should have a pile full of receipts. He started the debate there saying that Eddie could have pulled the contest, right? He said Eddie could have pulled the contest. Eddie said, no, I couldn't. Contractually, I couldn't do that. This was about 5 minutes into the debate. That snippet there. Look how he's forced to retract what he said.
This is one thing that you know inside out, right? Contractually, completely impossible for me. If you acknowledge of what I've just said...
If I acknowledge that, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I mean, I'm happy to share
and
those
that's a
comments.
fair comment.
Okay. Contractually, legally, I have no position at all other than let the board make their decision. Do you acknowledge that?
I do. But ask the question, because I can't get from you or anyone else.
He buckled. All you people listening to Simon Jordan is an intelligent man, right? He's not stupid. You don't make all that money that he did at Palace, even if he lost it. This is Jordan's push to become the biggest shock jock in sports. He's not doing the chairman thing no more. He gets paid a good salary at TalkSport, and this is his new shtick now. You're going to ask who won the debate. Let me tell you who won the debate. Simon Jordan won the debate, and Eddie Hearn won the debate, right? Simon Jordan is not only infamous in the football world, he's infamous in the boxing world now. These are the two sports that TalkSport promote, football and boxing. Eddie has basically used this interview to do what? Who fights in a week or so's time? How much traffic is this going to draw to that event now? Eddie timed this interview to perfection. Why has he waited 6 odd months to come on TalkSport? Why has he waited 1 week out from when AJ fights Jermaine Franklin? This is trending now. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to help the ticket sales, because they're premium price tickets. So that's why they're struggling to get rid of them all. Trust me on this. It's not going to be an empty arena. The arena is going to be full. The undercard fighters got all their tickets just the other week. What they're going to dish out. They'll get at least 16 or 17 in there on sales alone. And then there might be a few complimentary give-outs. It's going to be a full arena.
Switchboard and Meltdown. We thought it might be. Simon is alongside me. Eddie, Saturday, the 1st of April, TalkSport, as you know, will bring you live radio commentary of former world boxing champion Anthony Joshua's comeback fight against Jermaine Franklin. It's live from the O2 here in London. Fight night coverage will start from 7:30 on TalkSport 2, with the main event on TalkSport from 9. That's AJ Jermaine Franklin next Saturday, April the 1st. Stream the entire fight live on any device exclusively on DAZN. Download the app and sign up now at DAZN.com.
Or watch it on Sky, channel 429.
You know, they both won. When TalkSport air this live next week, the viewership figures are going to be higher than what the average boxing event they cover will be. Not that they struggle, because the event's coming on after final score from the Football League. Advertisers are happy all around. They both timed this to perfection, TalkSport and Eddie. So don't get too caught up in a lot of the issues. A lot of the issues, man, you guys get caught up in, oh, that's morally wrong. And you get caught up in that, man. Business is business. At the end of the day, we had 2 multiple PED violators in the ring on Saturday. And what are people saying? It was an entertaining fight between Lucas and Jarrell. It was an entertaining fight. And of course, they talked about the Jermaine Franklin AJ fight. Simon called AJ a flat track bully. Somebody who dominates inferior competition. Yeah. I'm not here screaming Eddie won the debate. It's nonsensical, it's childish, because, look, if you're talking about who was speaking facts and actually knew what he was talking about in terms of his guidelines of what he's allowed to do and contractually allowed to do as a promoter and what the board's regulations are. Well, Eddie was the only one who had facts. Simon didn't have any. Simon is arrogant. He didn't even do research. He came on there to blag. Simon said to Eddie, yeah, you're manipulative. You try and make people see your narrative of how you say it goes. No, that's Simon. He's speaking about himself. That's Simon. He's a shock jock. And he's comfortable with that. That's why he didn't do any research. And look, let me speak to some of the youngs listening. In life, you either are well-versed about what you're doing, you bring receipts, you bring stats, information, and it doesn't matter if you're going into a job, career, or whatever it is, right? You either do that, or you learn how to blag in life. Some people are good blaggers, and that can get you so far, and it can also get you screwed up. And as we know, Simon did lose £75 million, and maybe because, you know, he spent too much time blagging rather than looking at the reality of what's happening. I don't know. I don't really know the ins and outs of how he lost 75 mil. But he's a good blagger. And he's very good for Talk Sport because he's a shock jock. He's a shock jock. He's not a journalist. He's a shock jock. A journalist will go out and research facts and bring back receipts. Legit receipts. And I'm not talking about... Look, even receipts. Don't just take receipts as gospel. Sometimes you get fake receipts. But Simon don't even bring up fake receipts. He don't even do that. He just wings it. Because he knows that I've got to stir up the pot here so people tune in. Shock jock.
What you're doing when you do it, not what you pay them, but I know that you're straight down the line. No one mucks about you. They get paid on Monday morning after their fights, and I've always said that about you, both to you and about you.
Is that a compliment?
No, it's absolutely a compliment because in this game a lot of them don't, right? And he's always done that, but that doesn't alter the fact that when these guys came with you, say a Coley or Boazzi that were with you, and they moved to DAZN, they've all come away from it, or certainly in those two instances, with a great feeling that this might be all right for Matchroom, but it hasn't been particularly good for us. And then you're quite... Rather than accept the fact that sometimes you speculate to accumulate and sometimes you accept the fact that you run the risk of investing in fighters, you don't make it every single time, you seem to be quite acerbic and facetious and vitriolic about people that choose not to take up your particular conditionality.
Acerbic, facetious and vitriolic. It sounds impressive, Simon, but it doesn't mean anything.
I understand the fact if you want to make him a fight again, if it's a rematch clause against Bivol, I understand that. But if you want to stick him on a free fight deal after that, why should he need to?
No, he doesn't have to. He has the option to.
But after that, what you've done is becoming quite bitter and facetious about it.
I do, every day, but mostly around fights, I do 50 or 60 interviews a day with outlets. I get asked various questions. Sometimes my responses aren't perfect. Sometimes I speak from the heart, which I will always do, and I'll speak honestly. In my opinion. Right, whether you think I'm factually incorrect, like I do you on something.
Whether I think you're a snake oil salesman.
No. Well, I think that's a bit harsh. There's a lot I can say about you personally, but you know.
But you've said things about me personally.
Not really.
You said I'm the king of hypocrisy. With no basis for that.
You are the king of hypocrisy, but you talk like you're some kind of business expert. We know how that went for you.
No.
What I'm saying to you, because you don't acknowledge the situation. Lawrence Okoli, another situation. Okay, you have to make a call. Go back to the Crystal Palace days, right? And I'll say this to you. A player, right, gets an offer for, is out of contract or his contract's approaching. We've been there with Leighton Orient.
But I understand what
We've been there with Leighton Orient. And all of a sudden, you have an option to pay a certain amount of money or to let the fighter go. You have to make a commercial decision based on the ability of that player or the fighter, the draw, the numbers, everything around it.
But the point I was making, there's no implied criticism of that observation, right? Because the guy, you pay your money, he takes your choice, right? And so does the fighter. But the reaction from the fighters about being on DAZN is not a particularly complimentary one.
I disagree.
And it would seem that they had no choice, and I suspect that's probably the reality of their world that they live in, which is when you pitched up sticks and decided that Sky was no longer for you and a better opportunity for Matchroom and your $1 billion pursuit, which, by the way, chapeau, well done for you. If you can get 60 million from Matchroom boxing and make £12 million a year, fantastic. Nice business. I know, it's just boxing. I know, I looked at the numbers the other day. Well done, you, 20% net on net, very good. But the point is this, is that they look at it and they don't fancy it. And they don't fancy the dynamic of what you've created for them. And to some extent, I understand the reasons why.
Yeah, but you're talking about a couple of isolated incidents who get people in their ear. The others that might say, it's been unbelievable for me. I've boxed in America. I've boxed globally. I've boxed on the Canelo Alvarez.
Such as whom would say that?
Well, I think Yafai. Boazzi's one of them. Katie Taylor.
Well, Boazzi doesn't say it, does he? Boazzi's gone. So
no, but Boazzi, yeah, no, I said, you asked me who boxed internationally on those cards.
No, I asked you who would say something positive about it.
I think anybody that's taken that opportunity.
I'll be interested to see how positive you are already about AJ fighting Jermaine Franklin. That's coming up next, April the 1st. AJ against Jermaine Franklin. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Fury Usyk in the final part.
Jim broke Eddie in Stride Day. He said, Katie Taylor, Dillian, what about Canelo? Huh? Dimitri Bivol, huh? Derek Chisora, pay-per-view draw. Kell Brook, Dillian White, pay-per-view draw. Callum Smith. Is this guy serious? Anthony Joshua, Carl Froch, Tony Bellew, Alexander Usyk. The bottom line, right? Simon Jordan was a football chairman, and he did what he did. Eddie Hearn is a boxing promoter. But Eddie Hearn is a way better boxing promoter than this guy was ever a football chairman. Way better. And he's also conveniently not acknowledging that Akoli took the first swing and called Eddie a slave master. So what, Eddie's not supposed to defend himself? And so did Boatsi. And they're entitled to do that, but Eddie's entitled to respond. It's nothing to do with bitter. But look, like I said, a lot of what Simon said, you got to take it with a bit of humour. He's a shock jock. And I believe, Eddie's younger. He resents Eddie a little because they're both flash and cocky. And Eddie said, we're very similar in ways early. And Simon didn't like that. And I think Simon sees that. Eddie's a younger, more successful version of who Simon wanted to be, in all truth. And I don't think he'll ever get over that.